All right, so kind of continuing on with this project. The first thing that y'all were having to do was to set up all the different orange squares that were in the back. The next thing that you'll do is you'll place all of the icons that are associated with this. Now, to give you fair warning, the book is only going to cover these 3 icons. What I'm looking for the project is for you to do all of them. I think there's 10 total. Let's see, let me open. We'll go down to place. Where is it? There it is. Here they are. And so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only 8 of them. Just 8 icons that you have to be able to do. Some of these are going to be a little more complex than others. Some of them are very geometric, such as this one, so you can easily figure out which tool is appropriate. Some of these are going to be a little bit more complex geometric, and others are just going to require you to do your drawing skills to recreate these as well. Remember, I'm not looking for artistic perfection. I'm looking for you to use the correct tools to use some of these as you're working through them. I'll leave it up to your discretion. I'll help you out if you have any questions or any ideas on how to do this one. But the book will cover how to do these as well. One thing I wanted to show you, whenever you put objects onto a page, is kind of be aware of their stacking order. A good hallmark of some professional software is that it allows you to change the stacking order or the orientation, the arrangement of the objects that you create. So for instance, if I've got a new document, I'll zoom in and I'll cover this briefly. If I start creating different shapes, I've got circles, we'll make that a color. I'll do some squares, rectangles, whatnot, we'll make this one green. Notice every time I make something new, it's going to create it on top of the previous one. If ever I need to change this stacking order, I need to know kind of what layer and what area that it's taking up. So if I wanted this circle to be on top of everything, here's where I would go to change it up. First of all, I have my object selected. Under Object and Arrange, these are some very common ones to use. Actually, I'd recommend learning these keyboard shortcuts. You've got Shift, Command, and the bracket keys. Do y'all find the bracket keys? It's next to the P button on your keyboard. Command bracket and Shift Command bracket will bring things forward or to the front or send them to the back. So if I wanted to bring it all the way to the front of everything, bring to forward or bring to front, we'll do that. If I wanted to just send it back one, put it behind the yellow one, this is where send backwards, not necessarily to the back, will allow me to do that as well. Once you start learning the keyboard shortcuts, you won't have to go up there. You can quickly and easily move things around with this. Pretty cool? That's the first thing. Here's a little bit more advanced way of thinking about things. One of the palettes that you want to have open is your Layers palette. I can see it down here at the bottom right-hand side. I'm going to drag it off so we can look at it. Whenever we create things in Illustrator, this is true also in Photoshop, you're going to make things in different layers. And by default, we're going to be working in layer 1. Later on, you can create other layers and put stuff inside of it. And you kind of see the icon will give you a preview of what things look like. And so when I move things around, you can see the little icon will change up. Inside layer 1 is where I can find all of these objects. Now, if I hit the little arrow to arrow down, I can see inside of layer 1, I've got all of these little objects. So here's the path for the circle that I have. Here's the rectangle that I created, the yellow and the green rectangle. So even within a layer, I've got a stacking order of objects. Notice what's on top. The circle. Circle's on top of everything here. Another way of changing up the stacking order once I've opened up layer 1 is by just clicking and dragging these. So let's say I wanted my green rectangle to be on top of the red circle. I'm going to click on it and drag up. You can see my little hand, and you can see the line kind of appear where I want to place it. When I let go of my mouse, now I've drug it from the top to the bottom, and you can see it's reflected on there. Pretty cool? So that's one way to think about your arrangement. What stacking order are things placed in? You want to show that again? Any questions on that? Real easy. What gets complicated is when I start making new layers. So I've got one layer here. At the very bottom, this little icon will allow me to create another layer. So this will be layer 2. It's on top of layer 1. Anything that I create on this one, let's start making some stars, will only appear in layer 2. Oops, I had that circle selected. Let's make them pink. So now when I create stars, make sure layer 2 is selected. You can see it highlighted. And everything I create will stay in layer 2 by itself. If I open up layer 2, I've got all the paths that are inside of there. If I start moving things around, and I wanted to send this to the back, object, send it to the back, well, it's not behind the other shapes that I created. Why is that? Why did I not send it to the back of the other shapes?
Separate layer.
Separate layer. And be aware of what layer you're working in. The final thing to be aware of is whenever I select an object, I'm in layer 2 that's in another layer. Let's say I clicked on this yellow square. Notice that it automatically jumped to that layer. So be aware of what things are in, be aware of where you're placing things. Here's why I tell you this. When you're working on these icons and you place the symbols into here, they're going to create their own layers to work in. And they're going to be a special kind of layer. Check out my layers palette. So here's the one for the fire. It's got its own layer. Here's the one for radiation and for cold. The background layer is where all of your orange squares are at. And you're going to be creating these and tracing them off on another layer. The book will explain this. The layer that these are on is called a template layer. Check out these icons that are off to the side. I've got an eyeball or I've got a little square inside of this. If I didn't want to see something on a layer, turn it off, turn off visibility. I can click on any one of these icons. Let's say I turned off the fire, and it will go away. So there it is, turned off. Same way for the other ones as well. That's what that will allow you to do. And also toggle it back on. The other icon, the little lock icons, will allow you to not make changes to that layer. So once you have your reds or your squares set up, and I don't want to accidentally click on them or move them around, excuse me, I can lock them down, and now I can't do anything to that layer. As a matter of fact, if I tried to grab my Shapes tool and click and drag, you can see it's not allowing me to do anything. I've got a little circle there. If I unlock it by clicking there, now I can click and drag and actually add things to that background layer. Pretty cool? And move things around. Any questions on layering or working through those? Okay, let's have some fun. Let's actually work with the different vectors that we're working with. So I'll delete those away. When working with vectors, let's make some complex shapes. And by complex shapes, I mean we're going to be combining and cutting and changing up the basic shapes that we're working with. Y'all know you've got your basic shapes that we can have. I'll open this up off to the side. And I'll even open up my different lines that I'm working with. If I'm working with just simple lines, let's draw off a variety of different lines. We'll make them black from here. All I'm doing is creating one point to the other. They're not connected with each other. Illustrator will allow you to quickly connect two lines together. To do this, however, you have to select the lines that you want to affect. So let's do this one and this one. I've got my black arrow selected, so when I select both of these, both of them will have their bounding box. To join these together, we're going to go to Object and under Path, and here's a variety of things I can do to that vector path. Join is the first one. What's the keyboard shortcut for joining? Command J. That's a good one to remember. If I choose this one, check out what happened. It connected those 2 points. If I was to connect these two, be sure they're both selected. I can go to Object, Path, and Join, and they're connected off to this way. So they're joining up the open vector points between these two and these two. What do you notice about the points that are being connected? How come it didn't connect from here to here? It connected right there.
Closest?
It's the closest one. Whatever is closest to the next line, so in this case it would be this one and this one, that's where it's going to Command J, join it together. But let's say I didn't want to do that. I want to get more specific. I want this one to connect not from here to here, but from here to down here. In order to tell it exactly where you want it to join together, I've got to use my direct selection tool. Remember, the white arrow will allow you to select individual points. So I've got that anchor point, and I want to add on to this selection. What do I need to hold down to add on to a selection? What keyboard shortcut? Shift key, very good. Hold down Shift, click on this anchor point. Now both of those points are selected, so when I do my Path and Join, it joins up those two anchor points as well. And I can do the same thing for others. So if I want this one and say this one way over here, select both of them, Command J, and those are joined up as well. So those are two things to think about whenever you're creating your paths. Make sure you got the right points selected. You can see I'm using my white arrow. And then Command J or go up to your object and join both of those together to create that. All cool? Let's even have some more fun. Okay, let's get rid of these. Next thing, let's create something fun. We'll make a smiley face. And we'll rotate him this way. All right, so I've got my little smiley face man right here. He's looking good. Let's give him some color. We'll fill him in with yellow. Give him some black eyes. Y'all go away, I'm having fun. Okay, so there's our little smiley face man. How many objects is he made up of?
4.
4. You've got a face, 2 eyes, and a little arc for a mouth. If I wanted to move him, he's made up of multiple objects. Of course, I can't just click on one thing and move. It'll only move one object. I would have to either click and drag over all of them or shift click to move all at the same time. Now, this is going to get really complicated, especially if I've got a lot of different things that are on my artboard. It's going to be difficult sometimes to select those. What I would like to do is just with one click be able to select all of these as one grouping. And so to do this, I'm going to select these again, make sure everything's selected. Under Object, I can choose Group. What's the keyboard shortcut? Command G. With them grouped together, if I deselect it, with one click, I can select the entire group of them, and I can move them all around at the same time. I can even hold down my Option key and make multiple copies of all of them at the same time too, since they're all treated as one particular object group. Does that make sense? Check out our layers. I'm going to open up layer 1. Remember, everything in a layer has its own layer. The group itself has a little sub-layer. So here's group 1 for this particular object. If I open it up, now I can see the individual paths that make up that one. So it's starting to get a little bit more complex. But grouping objects will allow you to quickly and easily move things around or even delete things if necessary. If I did want to break them back apart and ungroup them, once I have it selected, ungroup is what you need. What's the keyboard shortcut for this one? What's the arrow mean? Shift. Shift Command G. We'll ungroup them, and now I can go back to selecting the individual points and moving those around as well. Cool? Okay. Last thing, on making more complex shapes. This has to do with how the shapes will interact with each other. And so I'll make a couple of different things. Oh, let's get a polygon on there. Hello. Whenever you got two different shapes, remember they're in a certain stacking order and they're overlapping one another. I'm going to open up another palette, and this is a common one to use. This is your Pathfinder palette. Under Window, and I see Pathfinder. There it is up here. It's not so common that it's always open, so I've opened it up and we'll dock it to that side. Let's move our layers back out of the way. Pathfinder will allow you to combine two or more shapes together to give you a more complex shape. So let's say I wanted something that has a circle that also combined this shape into it. I can place them together exactly where I want them. When I select both of them, check out the options I have in Pathfinder. You kind of get an idea of what it will look like. So the first one will combine or unite both of them together. And I get a shape that looks like this. It completely gets rid of the inside of it, and it creates one continuous shape. I'll undo that. Command Z to undo. And you can play around and see what the other ones will allow you to do. This will cut out that particular shape. And that only cuts out what's in front. This one will do the intersection. So if I've got two shapes, I want to keep the inside of it. I can click on that one and work inside of this one. Pretty cool? So how do we use that one? Let's place one of the more complex shapes into here. Biohazard. That one looks really, really complex. What does it look like it's made up of? Mostly circles. So I bet I can recreate this using mostly circles. Let's place it in here and find out. Place it right there. Just for fun, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Here's another thing really quickly. I told you you can lock down certain layers. So if I don't want this to move, I want it to kind of stay still, I can choose its layer, lock it down, and then now I won't accidentally work with this. We'll work in layer 2. We'll lock down that whole layer. Let's make this out of circles. So I've got my circle, and we'll make one. If I wanted to move stuff around, I'm going to hold down my space bar and move it into place. And so now it's just a matter of choosing it. There's a circle right there. Hold down my option, make a couple of quick copies. So there's one circle. Where else can I have circles? I see,
ring?
Yeah, the ring itself in the center. I'm actually going to work within these at first. So let me make another circle. We'll make this one blue so we can see it. Get my circle tool, make it a little bit bigger, kind of just eyeballing it, moving it into place right here. I'm going to get rid of these so we won't be confused. Hey, I need this one to be behind there. What can I do?
Layer.
Object, layer is one way of doing it. I'm just going to do it this way, and we'll send it backwards. Now it's in the back side of that one. I'll maybe move this down, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so I've got an object that looks pretty close to what I need. Maybe make it a little bigger. I've got them both selected. Which pathfinder do you think do I need to erase away this one? Which one do you see?
Which one are you erasing?
Erasing. I want to get rid of my my pink right here.
The second?
The second one, this one right here, and there's that. It's pretty close to what I need. It's off by a little bit, but I can work with that. From here, hey, if I wanted to, I could even just make a copy of this one and rotate this one into place. And this is giving me my complex shapes that I'm working with. I'm not saying this is the best answer to creating this, but you can see very, very quickly I've created a shape that's getting close to what I need. And this is the kind of the beauty of working with Pathfinder. If I wanted to create the circle that's behind there, we'll draw it off. Hey, it doesn't need a fill. I'm going to make it a really, really thick line, and I can go with this. Now the original one actually breaks in a couple of different places. So if I needed a circle in the center of all of this, grab my circle tool, redraw these. Just so you can see what I'm working with. So there's a circle in the center. If I selected all of these, and we'll minus the front again. Uh-oh. Notice that it has multiple little objects. This one was in front there, so that one didn't work. I'm going to try another one. The pathfinders down here will allow me to keep all of the shapes that I have, but it's going to do something interesting. So I'm going to select this one, divide, and it divided up everything that's on here. From here, I've got little individual points, but they're all grouped together. Actually, I'm going to get rid of, one second, I'm going to back up. I'm not going to select my line. That's one thing that was messed up. Let's divide it up again. I've got all these different shapes. They're all grouped together. So I'm going to go to Object and ungroup them. Now I can select the individual parts and actually erase them away. I'll do that again real quick for you. So if I move this, now I'm getting an object that looks a little bit more a part of this. The ones up here at the top, whenever I choose them, they will automatically give me the result that I'm looking for. Click on them once and it takes it away. The ones down here at the bottom, when I choose these, clicking once, it looks like nothing happened. But what it did was it divided it up, or it created the intersections that it needed, and it grouped everything together. So now I need to ungroup them. And I can click and I can move those around that way. Pretty cool? That's what those at the bottom will allow you to do whenever you work with those. Any questions on working with the pathfinders or working with multiple objects? Next class, and remember we don't have class on Monday because we got a holiday, but I'll show you about working with the pen tool and some things to think about with these. But let's look at the other icons and see which ones. We already know this is mostly made up of circles. What about this one?
Lines.
Lines and squares, yes. This one's a little more complex. I do see some circles. This one would require you to do some hand drawing. We'll use the pencil or the pen tool. What about this one? Easy or complex?
Easy.
A little bit easy. I see circles, I see straight lines, things like this. This one, a little more complex. This one would be a good freehand drawing. This one, easy or complex?
Complex.
A little bit complex. Maybe you'd have to create some custom lines here, but you got some squares or rotations there. That one's really easy. That one will be covered in your book. This one seems pretty easy. These are mostly straight lines with the exception of his head up there as well. The main thing to remember, especially when working with vector art, try to keep it as simple as possible. You shouldn't have to do a variety of different clicks, a lot of computer acrobatics to make these things. It's just a simple matter of trying to see what you're doing with what you have. If you can break it down into simple shapes, let the simple shapes be the easiest way of making it. Don't try to go off and make something more complex. Also, don't forget about following the instructions in your book. Don't skip over anything. Pay close attention to what exactly that they're looking for. As with last time, while y'all are working, if you have any problems or if you have any difficulties with this, I'll be walking around to answer your questions, and we'll go from there. Okay? I'm going to give you plenty of time to work. Question?